Buenos dias. Come on, I didn't travel all the way from New York City on a plane to just hear Buenos dias. That's what I'm talking about. If we were in a quinceañera, y'all would be screaming and dancing right now. So I'm gonna put a timer on because I work for a man named Harry Belafonte, and he and I've learned from him that I actually can talk a lot. So I'm gonna give myself some time, but I'm truly honored and humbled to be back. Thank you to Lourdes, who invited me the first time in Atlanta. And so now I'm here really touched by being back in San Antonio. My grandmother, who was born in the 1800s, was born in San Antonio, and my father is 93 years old. And so you look at me and you're like, wait a second, how does she have a father who's 93? Well, I'm his I'm his blessing baby. And so I stand on the shoulders of many pioneers that were from this country. We didn't cross the border crossed us. And I also stand on the shoulders of my mother, who came from Zacatecas, Mexico, to provide her children a better opportunity. But I'm excited to be here, and I've been thinking a lot about what I was gonna say to all of you, and I'm on a plane every other day. Not only do I do the work locally in New York City, I also do it in California and in between. And as I was trying to gather my thoughts this morning, I had to deal with a crisis, because when you organize a women's march and you bring women and marginalized communities to the center, you also become a target of death threats. And you become a target of people who feel they could blast you on social media and troll you. And so my conversations this morning were not about the speech I was gonna deliver to all of you, hoping to inspire you, but how I was gonna protect the lives not only of myself, but also of my two counterparts, Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour. And so I also bring them into this room because this march wasn't necessarily just planned by me, although I will say a Latina's voice in it is what allowed it to be extremely inclusive and diverse. But there's a woman here named Janae Ingram who also spoke last night. I don't know where you're at, Janae. There you are, Janae Ingram. She was one of our national organizers as well, and she actually got us the permit and did a lot of the logistics for us in Washington, D.C. But again, what I say to all of you is, please keep us in your prayers, because we need those prayers. We need for you, when you go out there, to think about those of us that are on the front lines. And so today's theme, strengthening families through education, opportunities, and empowerment, is an interesting concept for me, because when I travel across the country and we talk about strengthening communities, we also have to figure out how do we provide the resources that our communities need in order for them to thrive. My role as a national co-chair of the Women's March, being a Mexican-American woman, was intentional. When I got the call on November, I believe it was 10th, to be a part of the team, I remember thinking to myself, actually before that I was in Oxnard, California, organizing a 3-day juvenile justice conference called Growing Up Lockdown. And that was a return to home after not being there for 20 years. And it was really hard to organize in my personal community, because my community and my family is personally impacted by incarceration, violence, and drugs. And when I was 17 years old, I had a sister buried on my birthday. She would have been 19, but her and I were a day apart, and we were raised like twins. And I remember walking down an aisle, and I saw 2 balloons, and I saw a birthday cake right next to a casket, and it said, "Happy birthday, Patricia and Carmen." And I was a little stuck. What do you mean, happy birthday? It was the same day we were burying my sister. She was killed in a one-vehicular car accident. The people responsible for her death had hid her body for 4 hours. And I remember when the police came to our home, they asked my father, "What do you want to do?" And my father, in his 70s at the time, Chicano, said, "I don't want to take another mother's child away." And so for the past 20 years, I've dedicated my life to working with young people who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. I've gone into the prisons of California and New York because I still believe that people deserve an opportunity. People deserve access. And I didn't learn restorative justice because I studied it at college. I actually studied psychology to understand why these things happen. I learned restorative justice from my father, a man who didn't want to take another mother's child away. A man who never stepped foot into a classroom because at the age of 6, he worked in the fields of Salinas and Monterey. And so I stand here with that orgullo because I come from legacy. I come from people that regardless of what they had, they made it. And they taught me to work hard because nothing is ever handed to you. They taught me, I don't know if you guys ever get this, but my mom always says, Dios proveerá. God will provide. And I believe that because I've slept on benches and on floors, organizing across this country, going to El Salvador to support a peace process between MS-13 and 18th Street gang leaders. And you say, what are you doing in those spaces? Because I believe, and people may not agree with my tactics. It's the reason why we get blasted on social media. They don't believe in the way in which we feel justice should prevail. And so they say things about us. But when they don't show up, I'm going to continue to show up because I believe in our children. I believe in our young people. I believe in our elders who teach me every single day. And so I took a glance earlier when I walked in and I saw the beautiful display of pink hats. Although some of us don't have pink hats. I don't know if you guys know that. The pink hats were a representation of I don't want to be disrespectful. Are there any priests here? Of the private parts women have, right? And so, but to see all those women and all of you who I know who marched, I thank you. Because it wasn't easy being a Mexican-American woman on that national organizing team. When your family is 3,000 miles away from you, when your father is elderly, when you're getting calls telling you, why isn't this called the People's March? Why does it have to be called the Women's March? When the conversation is only about the permit. So thank God for Janae, who at some point, I think, was trying to tattoo the permit on her forehead. Because she was like, we got the permit. The permit was a process. But you see, when we don't understand processes, what do? We criticize. It's really easy to stand on the sidelines and criticize the way in which people do things. I played basketball from the age of 5 to college. So I learned how to play in a team and win championships. I didn't stand on the sidelines, and I'm never gonna stand on the sidelines. And so yes, there was 4 national co-chairs. There were 70 national organizers, 400 state coordinators, and about 90 global that made the Women's March a success. So I want to honor those people that actually made this happen as well in this space. Because you see, when we come together as a people, when we come together as women, when we come together as Latinos, we can build collective power and change the landscape of our political landscape of our country. That's what we can do. But some of us will say, well, she's not Latina enough. She's too pocha. How many of you guys been called pocha? I got called a pocha the other day. I was, woo, you should have heard me. I was like, why are you othering me? That's the way in which they divide us. That's the way in which they make you feel as though one is better than the other, and it's the way in which we feel we could do away with immigrants because we other them, right? So for me, it's important that we think about what solidarity looks like. It's important to think about what showing up for one another looks like. I often hear people, some of us older folks, complain about young people and the way in which they wear their pants. You know, they're sagging their pants. I don't want to see their underwear, right? All of a sudden, we forget we were once 17. How many of you wore bell bottoms? That's right. Let's just keep it real. So let's not forget that we were once young, and so instead of telling young people, you know what, you don't know anything, or stop sagging your pants, why don't you say, mijo, or mija? You know, that's a different style. I probably wouldn't wear it, but you know what? Okay, help me understand you. Because it's better to connect to one another instead of creating these divisions between one another as Latinos. I read an article the other day, and it said, where is the Latino voice? Where are we? It's beautiful to see all these different shades of brown. I love it. I'm usually one of the only Latinas in the room, and that's my problem. I'm gonna tell you why. Because we need to cultivate the leadership of our young people to also sit in the same rooms where we are. And we oftentimes talk about young people being the future. Can I see all the young people here stand up, please? And if you consider yourself young, by all means, please stand up. If you consider yourself young, I'm not going to discriminate here. But I want to say to all of you, young people, keep standing. I'm talking to you. You are not just our future. You are our present. And you are the greatest gift we have at this moment. And so I want everybody to look at these young people, and I want you to nurture them and cultivate them. And if any one of you could femtor or mentor any of these young people here, please do so. I will raise my hand and mentor one of you. That's all I'm saying, femtor. But please do that. Y'all could sit down. You know, I work in the Black Lives Matter space too, and when I say I'm in the Black Lives Matter space, I'm also talking about the fact that I show up when an unarmed black person is being killed at the hands of police. And oftentimes, I don't see my Latino brothers and sisters there. And when I put the hashtag Black Lives Matter on a post, I often get, well, what about Latinos' lives? I do believe that Latino lives matter. But at this moment in this country, black people are being killed at higher rates. And all over the world, we see that black people are the most oppressed. And I'm not here to talk about the struggle Olympics, because we could go tit for tat. What I'm trying to say is that we need to learn how to not only show up for ourselves, we need to learn how to show up for other communities. We play with words like solidarity and unity, yet we don't show up. We don't show up because we don't think it personally impacts us. Don't wait till it affects you. Please don't. And there was something so beautiful that Lourdes said earlier. She said, for those of you who just got here, we say welcome. There are many people. I've been organizing for 20 years under the mentorship of Nane Alejandres from Barrios Unidos, under the mentorship of Harry Belafonte. Although I've met Dolores many times, I'm not under the mentorship directly, but I do see her as a femtor. But I will say that there are so many people who feel things need to personally impact them. And when I walk 250 miles, I'm marching because I think of all of you. But don't wait. Don't wait. Life is too short. It was said earlier. Life is too short. We have one chance to get it right. And it's not to say that maybe you didn't show up before. It's not to shame people. It's to meet people where they're at and champion them to our cause. And so on January 21st, when millions of people showed up, we didn't say, where have you been? I mean, some of our sisters did, but some of us didn't. We said, welcome. Thank you for showing up for us. Because we've been fighting for 20 years. We've been fighting for 40 years. People have been fighting for 80 years. And it's important that we continue to show up. And I am proud to be here. I'm proud to be in this room with all of you. I always say, when Latinos call me to show up, I show up a la brava. I was going to say a la chinga, but I sometimes don't know which words go with the right thing. But I don't want us to suffer in silence anymore. I know I do that. My mom taught me, don't show emotion. Don't talk about your feelings. But we don't have to suffer in silence anymore. We have each other. Look at the person next to you. Look at the person across from you. Look at the person you've never met and say, I got your back. Imagine if we lived that way every single day. Imagine if we found our liberation bound in the liberation of others. My sister Linda Sarsour, who's a Muslim woman who I love dearly and is constantly under attack all the time, taught me something 4 years ago. She said, it was a quote from an Aboriginal woman. And it said, if you are here to help me, don't waste your time. But if you are here because your liberation is bound with mine, then let us work with one another. So we may not have the same issue that we care about. We may not grow up in the same neighborhoods or grow up with the same stuff, and some of us are just trying to make it out the hood and not look back. But I feel my liberation is bound with yours, whether it's in San Antonio, whether it's in New York City, whether it's in California, whether it's in Denver, whether it's in Mexico, whether it's in Alabama, wherever it is, my liberation is bound with yours. And so for me, I'm going to use a quote of Dolores Huerta. Every moment is an organizing opportunity. Every person is a potential activist. Every minute is a change, is an opportunity to change the world. Every minute. It's the words that you use. It's the way you interact with people, the way you make them feel. It's the way you smile at them. Every minute is an opportunity to change the world. So when we talk about opportunities, what are you doing with the one you have? Because like I said, I organized a conference, and I went back home after 20 years, and it was painful to go back home because I had to deal with the people that harmed my family. I had to deal with the system that incarcerates my community. I had to deal with the system that also deports my family. And I had to face my own fears. And so I was tired after October 27th. But when I got the call to come onto the Women's March, and it was an opportunity for me to sit at the table and not actually be on the menu, I felt it was my responsibility to bring my community. It was my responsibility to ensure that there was a Mexican American speaking on that podium, talking about our communities and how we were not rapists, how we didn't come here as thieves. We came here because our families are hardworking families. Our families, yes, we have some of the best music, the best food, the best dancing, right? We are some of the most amazing individuals. When we look at those fields, it's because our people were actually architects. But they've taken that from us. And so I'm here to remind you of your greatness. I'm here to remind you that Superman ain't coming. Or Superwoman, or is there a Spanish one? We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are. So don't wait till it's too late. Don't wait for tomorrow, because today is the moment that we have to change the world. Thank you.